Welcome to session 9, which is our final session of Data Camp, CCSQ D&A Roadmap and Vision. We are going to go over just a couple of reminders before I kick it over to our presenters today. As our speakers present, please remember to stay muted to minimize distractions. If you have a question during the presentation, please submit it to the Zoom chat. At the end of our session, the questions will be answered by our session speakers. And we also, just a reminder for those of us who are just now joining, all of our materials, session slide decks, notebooks, and recordings are all going to be shared on our Confluence space. So if you can't access certain sessions, please feel free to check back there and you can still attend virtually with the sessions. So moving over to our presenters now. Ooh. There we go. Our first presenter today is going to be Ken Howard, the Director of DQSGED within CCSQ.
There's been a slight change, Julia. Justina's going to go first.
Okay, that sounds good. I think Laura made that change in our slide deck in terms of speaker slides. So I believe I have the most updated one. We'll see when we get there. You let me know if something needs to change though. Our next session speaker is going to be Justina Sardin, the Division Technical Advisor for ISG DQ SGED. And so swap, Justina's presenting first though. And then Alicia Hudson, CCSQ D&A Analytics Program Director, and Alicia is also going to be here today to support with Q&A at the end. Okay, I think we're good, Ken. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, we're good.
Perfect. Hi, thank you,
everyone. It's been quite a wonderful couple of days. So I'm going to go quickly to remind everyone of all of the things that we have done, where you can find the information. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for all of the organizations that have met with us during the use case hours. And we have gathered a lot of valuable information during those calls, as well as during our surveys. The information is going to be available, post on our new portal. If you have not had a chance to visit it, I highly encourage you to do so. There is information related to the SaaS transition itself for a majority of our organizations, as well as the organizations that are under the IKEA's Qubit group. The use case meetings, if you have not had a chance to schedule one with us yet, please do so. We'll gladly meet and go over what we know, where we are, where we're going, as well as document all of your concerns, your successes, etc. The compilation of the specific needs of the organization is very important to us. It gives us a better picture to understand what is coming ahead. We always plan the topics of our sessions for office hours, for the training sessions, based on the feedback that we're receiving from you. And as we move forward, if we'll see that we will need to pivot with something, we will do just that. We are piloting a couple of the tools for code conversion, Databricks and SAS2Pi. As soon as we have the results and compilation of recommendations, we will be sharing with the community. As always, via the mailings, via Slack channels, and of course, via our gatherings. Next slide, please. And I can't say that enough. We're in it together. We're here to support everyone. We're here to truly understand what it is that you are facing. So your feedback is very welcomed and appreciative. Transparency is going to be extremely important in this process. So that feedback is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, going to be important to compose our contents of the town halls, future data camps, of course, our materials that we're posting on the portal, any FAQs, any training sessions, the type of the code that you need assistance with, specifically with the macros that you're using from other agencies. So all of that information is going to help us better assist you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. We will be very responsive. via the regular tools, the Slack channels, as well as during our training sessions. And I know I rushed through all of this. I know majority of you have heard it before, and I think that's it. And I can pass it over to Kim. Oh, no, I can't. Sorry about that. Forgot about the transition plan and timeline. So what are our keywords? What we are planning to do is, while onboarding new contractors, we are not automatically issuing SASVIA roles to the new organizations. There is an asterisk there for a reason. In case there is a reason why a given organization would need those roles, we will take it case by case basis and issue them as needed. To reiterate, our current plan to turn off SASVIA 3.5 is December 31, 2025. As I have mentioned during the use case meetings, SAS has announced the end of standard support being February 2025. After that, we will have an extended support agreement with them. During the Q1 calendar year 2024, we are identifying the organizations to group them as far as the needs for assistance and needs to transition. So we have it as no transition needed with minimal assistance, as well as transition needed with critical needs and or blockers. During Q2 and 3, we will continue with our research. So we are finalizing our pilots to identify what we can implement into production. And as soon as we know what the best course of action is going to be for them, we will let you know. And we are hoping to provide the code conversion tools during those quarters as well. During the Q2 and 4, we will continue with the office hours, with educational sessions, with the town halls, data camps, and one-on-one targeted meetings if needed be. So I believe this is it. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, all. As we round out data camp, I hope it's been informative to everyone. I hope you gotten some tidbit of knowledge out of this, through the various sessions. If there is any information pertaining to a particular session that you didn't get answered, please, submit the question, submit, what any information you need, any recommendations on improvement. We sincerely want to hear from you. So what I wanted to talk about today with kind of discussing a roadmap, it's building on what I did at the initial session, is kind of expand on some of the concepts, philosophies, target dates, things like that for what improving the overall CCSQ analytic environment. So one context I would like everybody to keep in mind is much of what we're talking about is for an enterprise solution. I'm not addressing individual projects, teams, or objectives in a lot of my statements. It's meant to be an enterprise or shared service level discussion. There might be nuances specific to your work that we have to address separately. So we're not excluding that. We're just, for this conversation, we're talking from an enterprise. And with that said, as you all know, you're going to hear it ad nauseum about the end of SAS, right? We want to make sure no one can say, I didn't hear about that. You're going to get constantly communicated that through the end of 2025, we're going to be decommissioning SAS at the end of 2025. That's a fact as of today. That is a fact. So for multiple reasons, but we're moving in that direction. So in order to accomplish that, we've made sure Databricks, our kind of tool of now, is expanding its functionality to be able to accomplish that task, to give a vehicle in which we could accomplish our analytics and move forward. So more and more of those features that are native to Databricks, more and more standard builds with when you bring up compute cluster, what is available to you by default. And that's going to all be grown over time between now and forever, right? So constantly. Any needs you need, raise. If it comes to an enterprise level, we're absolutely going to be addressing that every time we get that input. So don't hesitate, be vocal on that. Tuning service and support, right? We want to get better. We want to get more granular with the compute. Again, my ideal state, and I've spoken to this over the past year, my ideal state for CCSQ analytics is to get to a personal compute level. So any single person cannot impact their team or others within the CCSQ analytic environment, right? So there are situations where bad queries, bad code, bad submissions can bring an entire compute cluster offline, so no one in our community can do work. We want to make sure we're tuning and getting that configuration absolutely as fine-grained and individual as we can going forward. So always look for that information as we start moving towards that target architecture within our environment. Again, I'm hoping we get pretty close to that by the end of 25 meeting this. We're already pretty close. We've really gotten it down to an organizational level at this point. So organizations can impact one another. So any single organization having compute problems will not impact another. So that's, again, we want to get more and more granular with that. Publishing standards usage, right? What are best practices? What are configurations that are available to each individual community and organization? That is something we are getting better and better at definition, getting better at documentation to make sure you know how to use these products as it pertains to the CDR, as it pertains to CCSQ analytics. So that is something, again, I think there's a community-based support of that particular need that we look forward to your participation, federal and contractor alike. I think there's a lot of federal data scientists. We get a lot of great input today from. I look forward to continuing that. I look forward to working with cores on their individual needs in the community. We have the 13th SOW coming up, which can change some of the initial deliverables that are required. We want to make sure we are establishing standards and some type of basic governance around the use of those toolings. So stay tuned, participate when we put things out. It's important to hear your feedback on these things. If not, we're making decisions in a vacuum, and you all know that never ends well. Code sharing, again, from a peering instead of a central authority, like my analytics contractor publishing, universal code segments and sharing. It would be nice to get the community successful claims, logic in R or Python being made available to a larger community to reusable code base is something we are establishing, and to be able to cross-share our code segments, get peer review of those things, get, kind of that ideation on improving the overall quality of the actual analytics in our environment, improving the basics of how we do our compute within the environment, not technologically, but from a coding perspective. I think there's a lot of growth we can do there. So many exceptional developers and programmers out in our analytic community. It would be great to be able to show success, get each individual team showing success stories and showing that kind of incentive to the rest of the community. I think it's a good thing. Give you credit for what you've done extremely well and get you, that kind of, marketing capability. I think that does good both for federally speaking and contractually speaking. In community support, again, you're going to hear this constantly from me. I want to make sure that we're getting a better peering community. I want to get tools available so we can better collaborate on what these environments, coding, and standards need to be. Databricks Assistant. So these are now getting into some additional pilots that we're going to be doing over the next year. Right? Some shorter, some longer, just that we don't have the hard dates to them yet. We will share with the community. We will ask for participation where it's applicable with the community, because we want your affirmation, your attestations, your kind of participation in what right looks like with these tools. So Databricks Assistance, it is not generally available yet. It's still in preview release from Databricks, but it is a powerful AI tool that could be made available to our community. We are going to definitely research that tool, its applicability, its cost profiles that enabling this tool has with us, and seeing how it can be applied to our environment. We're very interested in this tool. So we are going to be piloting it at a bare minimum to see its applicability. So that that functionality, we've had inquiries already from various individual teams. We want to make sure we grow that interest and show value in that tooling. That can also be a potential supporting of our you'll probably see it on the later side, low code, no code kind of analytic capabilities, supporting kind of a soft LLM model there, just to let everybody know. So there might be a lot of value with that. Help write code for you in your analytics, help with the conversion process from SAS to Databricks or Python. So look for that. Again, in the near future, we're looking to do a pilot around that particular product space. We do not have a release date on that product yet. We're still working with the vendor to try and lock that in. Unity Catalog, again, using this functionality, it's a Databricks tooling or service. It enables a lot of advanced functionality within Databricks. That is something we are moving to in order to enable some better abilities. Kind of it's a glue equivalent for handling metadata and enabling services within Databricks. So this is something that's coming in the very near future for enablement to better improve our overall capabilities. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's things of interest with the community, things we are actively working and getting commitments from our external partners. So we are looking at establishing a direct connection to the IDR in the cloud. I want to be very clear, it's a newer version of IDR in getting to IDR data. As a side effect of that, we've negotiated access once that is configured and available to get the Part C data. There will be a separate approval to get the Part C data. Just to let you know, I'm talking about the physical connection to enable us to get to the data. We still have an approval process that's controlled by CM to grant access to the Part C data. It will not be a generally available schema for folks or table for folks. We will have a separate approval process for that. It's very rigidly controlled, just for your information. So, but it will be if your business or work it needs that data and we justify it, you'll be granted access. Again, hopefully it'll just be an extended schema available through the CDR. EDM it's been rebranded from the EDL, that's OIT's data lake. It is currently being, it's a peering partner with us to get better access to data, both sharing of our data via that data lake and getting data that they have access. So a lot of their data, I'm told, like from the MDM and Pecos and BIC and are going to be available through this new data mart. We're aligning with them to make sure that we enable that functionality for our community and to make it as seamless about where the data is hosted then as possible in that work. And make it, again, available schemas and have approval processes for you to get access to that data. And one thing that has always been a goal of the CDR since its inception. So as Gennady diligently explained, with our NCH process, and we currently maintain our own copy of claims within the CDR. Ultimately, we don't want to do that. Claims is not CCSQ's responsibility. We want to connect to an authoritative source of claims hosted by the agency, just like everyone else. So when that is available, we will look to do that. So if the agency delineates the IDR is that repository, we will plan to migrate all claims information to the IDR. Right now, the IDR will be in addition to our current model. We're not dropping anything yet. But that's what our goal. I want to let you all know the philosophy, be transparent with that, to say, ultimately, if the agency publishes a standard location for claims data, we, the CDR, will plan to move towards that location and no longer maintain our own copy of claims. But that's, again, always been a goal. Data publication standards. With the new functionality that we're getting into our environment, with the growth of, of dashboarding, as Sarah explained in her session, use of QuickSight, the ability of various data sets to be better published through Databricks and visualization within Databricks and whatnot, there has to be kind of a soft governance wrapped around that to make sure the content being shared isn't bypassing permissions or DUAs or anything as part of it, because it could easily bypass a lot of security protocols if we don't take great care about that. So look for data publication capabilities and standards and processes that we're going to be putting in place to account for that kind of security control aspect to it. So that is going to be a huge effort in the I'd say the next 6 months or so, that we're going to be publishing more and more of those standards. And what it means to you all, your feedback has got to be part of that. Lineage is a major effort. That is like the first domino in a larger data quality aspect. Lineage helps us with that security aspect to it, right? I can know that you use Part A claims as part of a data set you built to visualize for someone else, and I need to know if there's extra scrutiny about who should be able to see that particular data set, for example, right? If you don't have a DUA to see Part A claims, you should not see it. Right. So that kind of behavior is what we're looking at to make sure we account for. Lineage is the first step in that with any analytics and packages you put together. And that is also the first domino for some more advanced data catalog work that we want to do and availability. We're looking into it that we can actually get better and more consistent data catalogs, searchable data catalogs, and abilities based on that to expand the quality of our data that is available in the CDR. As a little defensive thing, realize that a lot of the data in the CDR, we do not own that data. That's why there's so many disparate data catalog entries and stuff like that in our environment, because there are 500 data providers that follow their own data catalog. We want to standardize that to make it easier and searchable by our analysts and scientists. In clearance DUA, I touched on that. It's just that is really the come to the data. That is really the transparency model, how our data is being used. That is the major advantage of what we're talking about all of the last 2 days, is making sure we understand how our data is being used, that the right people are using our data, that the right outcomes and lineage ties to those right outcomes is being done. So look for these changes coming up. Next slide, please. So again, going to hear this many, many times, probably at every session you attend with us. SAS via decommissioning. Don't start next year, start now. I highly recommend that. If there's contractual concerns or stuff, let's start those conversations now. Let's see what we need to do to make this right and get us all on a positive path for it. Identify Justina, as we're going out to every org and every contract to make sure that we're addressing your unique needs to see if you fit into the majority, or is there a unique need needed for your particular work. Be proactive in talking with us. Share with us. Let's get availability. Let's get this done. I can't express that enough. If we wait till mid next year, there is a high risk of your failure. And I want to make sure we get the resources necessary to get you to be successful. Transparency, call out risk. You're not hurting my feelings. I want to make sure that everybody, not if we don't stay with SAS, we will fail, but in order to get to Databricks, what do you need to enable that? What do we need to do? That's when I say we need to call that transparency out and have those discussions. Please, let's have those discussions. Again, I'm going to say this 50 times. Let's have those discussions. Migration needs, new toolings. As we have these conversations, as Justina goes through and works with each org, we're going to identify more and more needs for tools in our toolbox, right? To make the CDR more powerful, more useful, and take some tools and throw them out, bring new tools in to support it better. Technology is changing at light speed right now. We want to make sure we're staying current with available tooling, whether it's AWS tooling and across the board or other products, right? If there's a value to the community, we want to look into what it would take to support it. Again, I want to be very clear, as an enterprise service. Any tooling we bring in, we need it to be supportable as a service. Just because one person can run it doesn't mean it runs as an enterprise service very well. So keep that in mind with the conversations. We want to hear what you're thinking, but that's usually the context we as a team are coming from. Support program technical needs, always with the outreach, always with the ability to share and get their deliverables and their program needs. We need to make sure we're matching not only the current deliverables, but reviewing and addressing any deliverables that may need to be created in the future, or can we retire some of the deliverables? Those type of conversations need to be communicated. We're just not starting from the default. It's the way we've always done it. Again, I'm trying to be very open and transparent with this. That is a conversation we need to have with your cores, with your SMEs, your subject matter experts, and the individual contractors in the purpose of your deliverables. So let's get those conversations going. Tools that we are highly likely to enable. So we're doing right now actively, there is a pilot called SAS to Pi That is a code conversion tool, industry tool. You can Google it. It'll be out there. We're looking at providing that as an enterprise tool and support it, right? That's the key is if you all have any questions in using this tool to convert SAS code to PySpark, right? And Python and PySpark. So we want to make sure that we're giving the proper support and tool. We had a very positive pilot. We want to make sure that that enablement is something that will be a tool useful to the community in helping the conversion of code. So look for information on that in the very near future. I think there's some positive messaging coming in with that to help with that migration of a lot of our legacy code. Won't be 100%, never expected it to be, but if it gives us an 80% or so margin, I think that's a phenomenal number. That is arbitrary. Don't quote me on that percentage. Low code solutions, I touched on that with Databricks Assistance. We're also looking at some other generative capabilities, pilots that we're going to be doing. We're actively doing that type of work. Code creation assistance, again, same kind of, low code, no code kind of thing. It would be nice to get a generative model to do some of our more ad hoc reportings that a lot of our programs do, a lot of our analysts do. Instead of stopping you all from doing your big and important work, they can run their own kind of soft queries, through a LLM to see if it meets their needs for, what they're trying to do for program improvements, et cetera, for code quality. This to me has a lot of definitive work around most of our major programs, and the Quinn's, work could easily be accomplished through an LLM. Data visualization, as again, the QuickSight team did, we're looking at in improving that. We got 2 vehicles for decent visualization today, both through Databricks and through QuickSight. If you're delivering something in a spreadsheet today, please look at some alternatives, right? Email attachments, things like that. We're trying to modernize. So again, we learn who is consuming the content that we produce. And I say that we as globally. If CMS or contractors produce something, we should know who's consuming it, how important it is, and whether we want to repeat and do it again, right? What's the value of it? So I think that's important with the change in scope. Always look at, is it a consumable manner and trackable, and we're able to get metrics on its use of it. Deliverable review and value, again, touched on that already in a previous bullet. We just, again, can't say I have 100 deliverables today, I need 100. We need to look at the value of those deliverables and how we're delivering it. So again, it can't hurt to do a cursory review of that value with your business owner. Bring us in for a conversation with that, and we're happy to participate. That's really our major goal with Justina and the work that she's doing and helping the transition. Next slide, please. So AI evaluations, as I touched on, several pilots are going on in the next 6 to 12 months around AI. Understand that AI, I don't know if you're working in AI, you've seen the executive order put out by President Biden. If you put in, there's numerous workbooks and HHS guidance. I don't know how applicable it is, the applied layer of it is, but we need to figure out what that governance, oversight, and reporting criteria is when we use models, right? And we use AI. So there's going to be kind of a ramp up for this to figure out what right looks like in that space, to look at how we want to govern AI usage and report AI usage in our environment, because there'll be a lot of questions, because I think there's just a lot of ignorance. A lot of people just don't know what it looks like yet. I think that's coming, but we're very early in that particular part of this, our data lifecycle. QuickSight Q is a tool that has fairly recently come to AWS. We had an initial evaluation. It looks promising. It is something we want to pilot and see if it is expandable to our community while following in those governance guidelines I talked about. So that is an interest that we're looking at piloting on our side. Databricks Assistance was mentioned. Generative was mentioned. I have a few pilots going with generative in different use cases, both from the natural language processing world to Confluence and Atlassian ability, knowledge-based assessment, manual comparison, like Medicare manuals and program manuals to over the decades to see if there's value with that. Things like that, we're going to see if there's applied use cases from an LLM, and then see how it fits in our enterprise. As I've said many times, the complexity of these type of technologies is not that it works in a private sector. I have zero doubts of that. It's how it works in a federal space with federal regulations and federal mandates. We break everything when it gets into those particular regs. So we want to make sure it works for you all as expected. And if it has caveats or nuances, we communicate those caveats or nuances to you to level your expectations. And again, with the program, when I say that, not just a contractor base. Support federal executive orders. Again, it's all around development at this point. What does that look like? What does an equitable AI look like? What does, I think the question came up earlier, hallucination look like? How do we manage that? Do we have man in the middle kind of work with our AI models to assure the accuracy of it? So again, look for that type of information. Most of anything we want to communicate, we're going to try and publish on our new portal, just to let you know if it's something the audience needs, our community needs to get, we're going to share it through that means. The generative LLM, several tools, as I mentioned, we're looking at several models we're looking at, the frameworks. I know Bedrock and a couple others are out. I got some contractors looking at specific models that are developing with open source models that we can affect. Databricks, we're looking at increasing that capability. Again, all these things are in evaluation to support the community, hopefully with familiar tools and familiar processes so we don't disrupt the status quo for the environment. The published standards and guidance around that's coming. Expanding knowledge of existing solutions. I think there's a marketing campaign and a continued education campaign that we need to share. Again, some through our portal, some through office hours and support for better educations like micro versions of this data camp we want to do. So we're looking at enabling that from our perspective to support the community. So if there are topics you think that would fit, that we can either find prime recommendations for training content or create it ourselves. We want to know what's of value with you, what challenges you're having, what information would be useful, again, because everybody may have a different thing. We want to see if there's a commonality between our teams. And machine learning, just to let everybody know, so we already have a system called QNOD, Quality Net Operations Dashboard. It's kind of our single pane of glass for the operational status of all our major systems and services. We are enabling a machine learning on that to do predictive analytics to anticipate downtime of our major systems at a bare minimum to better train the thresholds at which we detect an outage. Right. So all these things are what we're trying to do with applied of AI and ML in our environment. These are all going on in parallel. So it is quite a balancing act here for what we're doing. And again, if you all have had corporate or other success using this technology, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to hear what you're doing and what both positive and negative experiences you had, because I think we all learn a lot just as much from negative as we do from positive. Next slide, please. And again, this is me doing a marketing. The portal, I have such high hopes for this portal and making it of value to you all. I think all these, bullets that we have on here is the main purpose of it, right? So we initially set it up. We had the DUA automation through it. So that may or may not have been of value to you all. I want to be very clear about that, but it was a huge value to us, right? So the manual enablement of your access to data before the portal was a significant administrative burden. So a lot of my people had to take away time to address that instead of helping you all or addressing other issues within the environment to make sure that your computer is running as seamless as possible. Once we automated it, it was wonderful, right? So that automation has freed up bandwidth for other more important services. So that's a very positive story to me. That is something I want to make sure we are growing on. So that usefulness of that portal is removing administrative burdens and allowing the focus to help individual business needs and individual business teams' success here. Access request, as we said, we're going to publishing standards out there. What does it mean for you to publish data? We want to make sure that when you do your analytics and you want to share that data with someone else, whether it's one person or a whole nother team of people, you publish the data to make sure it's in a place that others can get to and do what they need to do with it, right? It might be more additional analytics someone else is doing to it, or it could be for dashboarding, whatever. We want to make sure that publishing standard is out there for you all to accomplish. But it may come accompanied with, you need some type of data catalog. We need to make sure lineage is part of it. If it's a brand new, you brought in an external data set or something like that. So these are standards we want to put out for you, so we can get to this publishing standard that we're talking about and keep as lightweight of a governance process around things. And always, 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 always continual improvement. Everything is a moment in time snapshot with this. There is no longer we can go with the same configuration for years upon years. We must continually improve and modify and offer more and more tools to the environment and improve our analytics at the same time. There's always newer technologies that we can do, and we want to see what success looks like in that space. Next slide. So these are tools we are going to be considering. We don't necessarily, for all of them, have an active pilot plan, but these are features that we've heard individuals mention. So data wranglers, we used to have a data wrangler in the environment. It really didn't go used very much, so it kind of dropped off the radar. I think it's worth revisiting because some lightweight data evaluation might be a good thing in some cases. We are definitely taking even IDR out of the equation, which is Snowflake heavy. We are looking as maybe is that a tool we want to introduce into our toolbox for not only compatibility reasons, for other compute reasons, compatibility between CCW, IDR, EDM, any number. So that's an evaluation we're probably going to be performing in the next year or so. Databricks Assistance, I'm beating that one to death. QuicksIQ, I'm beating that one to death. In tech debt, something we're looking to do. So again, being transparent, if anybody's been here for the 12th SOW, you may remember that the CDR came into existence very quickly. It was a very fast deployment of technology, 3 months, if anybody was interested, to stand from nothing to something. So that was a huge effort, but it was very manual in order to meet timeframes. So over time, and especially in the past year, there's been a lot of automation put behind the scenes. So in order to streamline, to free up resources, instead of a huge maintenance effort, longer maintenance weekends, we're trying to get more automation to get much shorter and less frequent maintenance periods, right? Keep it as live as possible in our world. Again, by going to software as a service like Databricks is one of those goals, right? So that the outage is never realized with that particular technology stack, because as they roll new ones out, the next time you spin up a compute cluster, you get the new build, things like that, where we did not have that luxury previously, right? So there's huge advantages with that, with the amount of patching, the amount of maintenance and overhead that we need to apply to our tech stack by moving to some of these services, and that's what we're looking to. Push button deployment, so if there is ever a corrupted environment that we have very easy ways to redeploying the environment fresh without impacting other existing components. New tools integration, I've beaten that one to death. It is absolutely a continuing effort to identify and improve new tools in our environment. And the value would be worked with you all on the tooling. It wouldn't just be our decisions like traditionally it's been done to here's the tool, go use it, and it's a guess whether you're going to use it. We want to make sure we're engaging the broad community on the use of various tools for all of our efforts. And definitely bring your own analytic and bring your own data standards and methodology. A lot of what we have in place today, again, is about 5 years old with what it does, what it's meant to achieve. We want to modernize and see what improvements we can get. A lot of our ADOs use this methodology to get to and provide data to our environment. We want to see if there's improvement opportunities. So if you're part of those major ADOs, look for us to reach out to you and start having discussions about these improvement opportunities. Next slide, please. And I believe this is my last slide. So I wanted to bring these things up. I mentioned it in kickoff, but there is so many philosophies we work from, especially myself. I want to be very clear about that. So come to the data is something you get. So people either love the idea, especially if you have a security mindset, and others roll their eyes like, how am I going to get my job done? I respect both of those positions, just for the record. But we are having challenges, especially in the past year, with data vulnerability, data leaks, and et cetera, with around CMS data. Once data has left our environment, we have zero insight about where it goes from there, what the disposition of that data is, who's consuming that data beyond the initial person who downloaded data sets. So these are all things that we need to address, not only from a security, but from a quality program, building the quality programs that we have. If we don't know how our data is being used and we're basing it on one deliverable, how do we know the data we're collecting, providing, rules being made in the future are really legitimate, right? We want to get better database decisions in order for us to improve our overall program quality. And I think there are such improvements we can do in that space once we see how our data is being consumed, used, and by whom. So transparency, building the quality, knowing what data we need to collect, the accuracy of that data, the cleanliness of that data, because most of you know from a data perspective, crap in, crap out is usually a model that we do very well, and we need to get better at that. We need to get better checks on the data coming in, better quality controls, better analysis about what margins need to be dropped from our analytics, and as a community, agree to that. Right. So when the same query is run by two different organizations, we get the same results. And that commonly is not the case because those margins aren't trimmed the same way, or the bad data is thrown out or is not thrown out. So we need to make sure that we're all working off better quality data in the future, from catalogs to the actual data collection to rules being provided, et cetera. Right. So sourcing of data, again, you run a claims query from the IDR and you run a claims from the CDR, you never get the same results twice. So I want to see if we can align that better. That's why I'm saying we want to get out of duplication of data as much as possible. We want to go to the sources for data. We want to make sure that whoever is the owner of that data is the point we're connecting to. We're getting better and better at that. Just to let you know, we're getting less replication of data, more connection to sources of data as time goes on. I think I pretty much touched on the transparency aspect of this. That's the value to the philosophy that I have up above, just making sure that we are iterating towards the ideal state for these two tenants. Next slide. Oh, so I thought that was my last one. So thank you all very much. I did see a few questions pop up along the way. Can somebody kind of revisit those? You're on mute, Julia.
Julia, you're muted.
I am in fact on mute. I've held out this long. I feel like I was doing so well. Okay, I was saying, if it's okay with you, we were going to do the feedback survey first to get kind of a gauge on what people thought of Data Camp. It's just a few questions. And then we'd move into Q&A to kind of close us out, so we could just keep going with questions till we ran out of time.
That's fair. I'm going to review the questions while you do that.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so the Data Camp feedback survey. This survey helps us know how we can improve our data camp in the future. We will have another one in the fall, so just keep an eye out on that. So as a reminder, your name will be submitted with our survey results. That way the team can use this information to reach out with any necessary support or to answer any questions or concerns you might have about the event. In a moment, a Zoom poll will pop up on your screen. You will have 4 minutes to answer the questions. Please scroll down all the way through to make sure you're seeing all of the questions, complete the questions relevant to you, and then hit submit to lock in your answers. After the 4 minutes has ended, the poll will be closed. The results will be used to, like I said, to improve our data camp content in the future, but also give us ideas for what might have been missing in this one that you want to see next time, or what you love the most that we know we want to add again. Okay, so with that, should be up on your screen now. We are about a minute and a half into our poll here, so please take another 2.5-ish minutes to finish up. Take about another minute and a half. I saw someone had mentioned in the chat that they were having trouble getting the survey to submit. If the questions are required, which they may be, if any don't apply to you, just put an NA. So that may be why. So try that and see if that helps. Take 10 more seconds. Okay, so Ken, I'm going to kick it back over at this point to our Q&A portion. It looks like some of our questions were able, like I saw Justina had been in answering some of them.
They're being rock stars. They got those first ones. So the one John sent in, it's an interesting question. There's no hard answer for that. I will say initially, no, there's no plans right now for us to kind of do that larger join of all that information. That doesn't preclude that it could happen if there's enough interest in it. But typically the CDR, again, subject to change, but typically the CDR points to source information. We do not, transform it. We do not manipulate it. We try and keep it in as close to the original schema as we possibly can. Right. So we don't own the iterations or the changing of the data. The data owner does, right? Whoever's the source of that data. So that is really the intent from a CDR's perspective to make it available to a larger community. But again, when I get the data publication, as we learn from the community that there is a larger need, an enterprise need for some subsets, we are open to having those discussions and seeing what that looks like. Right. So from your first question, determining the format schema, I think that would be kind of a session that we'd want to have with the community at large if that was something we needed to look at. Again, once we start ETLing and maintaining it, it becomes a subset of data on its own and must be managed and maintained. And we always have tried to avoid that. Your second question, I think is a little specific. I think as we get our data catalog online within the next year, it may address that particular bullet, better definition of what data is out there, right? Because we do acknowledge, so the core data and analytics team, we do acknowledge that our search capabilities and abilities for analysts and scientists to know what data and what's of value to them is extremely poor and limited today. We want to improve that. Right. So we want to make sure that we are able to find out, what is needed in that space, standardize our catalogs, get some search capabilities out there. So we are moving in that direction. I think that will help.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
I cannot discuss contractual items on this call.
One other question that we got coming in is the MQA file structure, like claim segments, still a thing in CDR?
Yeah, I think Gennady touched on that. So we ingested the original NCH files and we keep it updated, various ETLs from the MQA and MQR files. So it yes is I think the basic answer to that. And I also saw I think Gennady answered. So final action is something we apply on our end after those processes. Mimicking I think, as close as we can to the IDR process.
I think this one hasn't been answered yet. I'm going, when it starts getting tangled in the thread, I don't think it has. Is there a way to get on pilot evaluation lists for new analytic features as they come up?
Good question. So the answer is we don't have a pre-list. What we will do to the community, probably on the monthly town halls, or I affectionately call them the fireside chats, is ask for volunteers, ask for interest of anyone on any specific project or pilot when we get to that point. Because you won't want to be part of it as we're talking infrastructure and enabling and things like that. But when it comes to the use of the tool for the community and how it can be used and the value it provides, we want your input, and absolutely we will solicit for anyone's participation for that work.
I think that is all of our questions.
Almost just
if
in time.
anyone else has a question that did not get answered or that I missed in the threads, please repost it. Let us know. And if not, absolutely reach out after the fact and we can get all of those questions to our presenters. And then just a reminder for anyone who may have missed some of our other sessions where I mentioned this, but all Q&A, slide decks, and materials will be posted to the Confluence space. So the Q&A portion is always the spot where it just takes us a little bit of time to reach out to all presenters, get everything typed up and finalized, and then get that added to the Confluence space. So while day one slide decks are already there, that spot, just keep looking back. We'll be sending out information in Slack posts and emails as things become available. So just keep an eye out for that. So any questions you may have that either didn't get answered in other sessions or you have after the fact and want to reach out, that's an option as well. Okay, well, thank you so much to Ken and Justina, and in general to all of our presenters in Data Camp. Thank you for a successful event, and thank you to all of our attendees for making this event so successful. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you in November. In the meantime, as Ken said, we have monthly town hall meetings. Please look out there for additional updates and demos and things as we have them. And that's it. That's all I have. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, call that.